Hey guys, Roar3 Solutions here. Looking forward to showing off a new interesting model and talk about some of the controls and how you can turn this into a really useful thing into your own personal sea life animation. So first, this is a model that I have created textures in 4K, and I have it's a low polygon design. So I actually did model all of the suckers, and you have the option of, in Cinema 4D, you have the option of doing a quick subdivision nerve on it, and in other programs, I will probably export it as a subdivision level of 1, so you have a real smooth looking model. So let's kind of talk a little bit about what we have, and we'll kind of go from there. So first, you always have your level detail in the editor. Always recommend you leave that low, like down to 0. Your level of detail in the renderer, which I recommend keeping at a level of 2 if you're going to use most of the image of the actual model within the viewport. You have the ability to apply a spline to it, so I've created a quick little spline here. This is definitely nothing fancy, but it gives us the ability to go ahead and just drag and drop the spline right into place, and then you would just keyframe and you would get it to follow the spline. Now the fun part is that with this, you actually have the ability to make it's a dynamic model. So if I go ahead and enable the dynamics, I hit play, we're going to kind of swim around, and I'll talk about the color here in a sec too. You can get them to swim and have a real nice kind of flowing motion wherever it is that you want to take them. And as you can see, the color is also animated, so that you have the ability to go ahead, as a octopus would be. You can actually modify and manipulate the coloration. They kind of camouflage themselves, so you actually have the power to do that right here. And I've pre-animated it so that you can see it does a nice kind of smooth transition through the red, blue, greens. So, and it's just an additive color within the texture. Again, this only works in Cinema 4D. It won't work if you use any other program. You're going to have to manipulate that yourself. So I'm going to clear that. I'm going to reset the model. And if I hit play and reset again, we're back to our starting point. So when you receive this model, you'll get it without any, oops, let me fix that, remove all the tracks. You'll get it without the any of the preset coloration or adjustments. There is something important to note. If you're going to use a color keyframe, make sure that you duplicate the model and duplicate or import the model. Reason being, if you have one texture with several octopus and you're using the color channel, you're going to break the rig. So make sure that that color channel is supported to that actual model. So if you're only using one octopus in your scene, this will work just fine. So as you saw, you can enable and disable the dynamics right here. And so the disabling is more if you're adjusting and prepping for getting your animation ready to go, and you don't really want to have a whole lot of motion. So I'll go ahead and re-enable. That is your static pose. I'll disable, and you have the ability also to adjust gravity. Now, why does that really matter? Well, that matters just because if you want to do some kind of a cool flare, you can actually create your own swimming motion. And this is literally just by kind of moving the arms up and down. I don't have a setting for you to be able to adjust this yourself. You have the power to keyframe as you see fit. And I do put in here that the normal gravity vector is actually 8.18. Now that is 9.8 meters per second squared, so that function will give you kind of what would be considered normal out-of-water gravity. Inside of water, you kind of have the ability to defy gravity a little bit. So that's why I set this up so you can adjust that. Amplitude is exactly what it sounds like. That's the height of your adjustment. And as you see here, you can get them to kind of do a little bit of a diagonal kind of swim. In this case, what I've also kind of created for you, let's see if we can do this again. I've kind of created a tag, so some people may have the desire to just lock it in place. You don't want to have it do a whole bunch of things. So that's how you'll get the model. I'll show you again. Within the octopus null, I have a restriction tag with the vibrate tag to let you kind of lock that down. So if I lock that down now, you have just a vertical kind of a swim, and you have this really kind of nice flowing arm feature. So and the fun part of dynamics, if you haven't played much with them, is the fact that you can sit here and real time kind of manipulate things and get a really kind of cool result out of it. You can start to get the arms to go all kinds of funny on you. So okay, go ahead and reset that back. Okay, so what else do we have here? Well, we have the frequency, which is what it sounds like. It's how fast the octopus is going to move around. You have I'll go ahead and leave that kind of high just so it's running. You have arm strength. If you leave the arms very strong, that means that your tension is going to be much, much higher. I tell you that the default is 15%, and you could go as low as 0, but then you don't have anything to fall back on. So I highly recommend that you keep it up at 15% at least. And then your drag is essentially what it sounds like. Drag is like think of it as a liquid body coefficient. So when you're in water, you actually have quite a bit of drag as your model is moving around. There's a lot of things that are going to kind of capture it. With the drag increase, you get this nice kind of arm flow. Okay, and then so same thing. You have your head strength. You can sit there and adjust that if you want it to bob up and down. Now remember, my gravity is set to 0 right now. Normal gravity is normally going to be negative, so we'll go ahead and start dropping that down, and you can see what the result is. The head is going to start to kind of deform dramatically here. So I recommend keeping the head strength up to, say, 50%. But definitely keep the drag high, so that way you have this real nice kind of bob. And if you reduce the drag completely, you can see that it doesn't really give you that bounce, that jiggle. So that's what we have for that. As you can probably also see, he breathes. So while you're in the animation, your normal aspiration while it's actually at rest is going to have this breathing tag. So it's kind of a cool thing to be able to get you to sit there and relax and not have to do a ton of keyframe buttons to get an end result that you might want. I'm trying to make this easy for you so you can just grab and go. So then we have collider objects. So what I've done is I've kind of created literally a primitive cube, and actually I'll show you two things. So first I'm going to not use a fillet, and what you want to make sure is that first your object is below the actual primary object that you want to animate with. Then we're going to come in here, we're going to drag and drop right into the collider objects within the octopus control rig. When you hit play, if you don't have the gravity going, it's never going to get there. So this is a moment where you're going to want to start to give it some gravity. So what you see here is the suckers are actually going to collide and actually have a lot of resistance. So just be aware that when you use an object, using a fillet on it or having a smooth surface is probably a better way to go about it. But as you can see, it's completely dynamic within this part. So if I come in here and I kind of move him around, he's absolutely going to sit here and wrap around the object itself. That will apply absolutely the same to a landscape. In fact, let's just go ahead and show you real quick. So let's say we want to just drop a landscape in, for example. I want to go ahead and drop it down. Let's make it kind of spiky. And all I have to do literally is drag and drop that back into place. And I'll go ahead I'll go ahead and actually delete the cube for right now. We'll reset the pose, come back into play, and I'm going to drag the landscape to make this easier to show you. And it will impact and give you this really nice kind of relaxation along all of the areas that it's hitting. Some of the sharp areas will have a hard time, so just be aware of that. So there's some things that you may want to consider. And what I've done is tried to weight map the arms as smooth and soft as I can so that it has a really nice end result. But that doesn't mean that you're not going to have some impacts up on the rougher areas. Okay, so that's about it for that. I include my website in here so you guys can just select that, go right into the web page, and then you can look at some of the models that we offer. You can go to our YouTube site, which will have a number of different tutorials that talk about all the models that we have and how to deal with some of the functions of the control rigs, because we do work on all of these functions for rigging. You can go to cgtrader.com and look at Roar 3D Solutions models. All of the Cinema 4D models, 95% of them are all rigged and or animated, so I recommend you look into those. And naturally, our website is the best place to actually purchase any of these. We have a little video that talks about what we do. You can go into the store page, look at all the Cinema 4D models. They are kind of categorized, so you can look at the aircraft, you can look at the marine life, you can look at helicopters and printable items and cars and vehicles, and we're going to be putting a whole bunch more scenes in the near future. Most of the models that we do create are PBRs, so we do include a lot of our different coloration textures, and in this particular model you'll see we also have a displacement map. As light as it is, it does exist, and when you come up close to the model, you'll actually be able to see the displacement kind of forming within the rest of the model itself. So I hope that you guys find this video useful, and within the Cinema 4D file there will be a automated animated model, and we will also be including a animated file in FBX, Blender, and DAE. So if you have an interest in not doing any work and just throwing something in there, we'll have a couple of different animations that you can work with. Well, thanks for watching this video, guys. I hope you enjoyed this, and happy modeling.